Shabbat Shalom. In this week's parsha, Parshat Toldot, we read about the birth of the two boys, Yaakov and Esau, and two distinct people one cannot find. Esau is born as a redhead with lots and lots of hair, fully formed, whereas Yaakov, his brother, is one who is born gripping onto his heel, trying to hold him back. Who is Esau? Esau comes from the word fully formed. But when we read about this word, we find something troubling. Because when you are fully formed and complete, what do you have to live for? And thus we find Esau in his personality. He's always chasing after something else. He's trying to please. He particularly tries to please his father. But he's trying to please. When you're born with everything, there's no goal for you. There's an incredible story that I read about Buzz Aldrin, the second man to land on the moon. And he writes in his biography that as soon as he had reached the pinnacle and arrived and walked on the moon and came back down to earth, his life fell apart because he had no goals anymore. Your entire goal was to be the astronaut to get to the moon. When you get to the moon, there's nothing more to do. How can you top that experience? And he was a young man at that time. And his life falls apart. When you are completely asui, when you're completely made, when all the boxes have been ticked, what are you, who are you, and how are you going to continue to grow? And thus, when we look at the way that the Torah treats us and challenges us, and we look at the different mitzvot, we find that we are never able to achieve them. One of the challenges that people ask about Judaism, it's so hard. How are you supposed to keep Shabbat and Kashrut and learn? It's like a sea of Talmud. You can't complete it. How are you supposed to achieve anything? I always remember my teacher, Rabbi Lichtenstein, coining the phrase, you should always have a vision of greatness. You should have someone who's so far ahead of you that will always challenge you to improve yourself, to become better, to be molded. And that is a lesson I keep with me every single day of my life. When I'm comparing, when I'm learning, I don't compare myself to the people around me. I compare myself to him. And when I compare myself to him, I see how I'm dwarfed by his brilliance and his greatness and his breadth of knowledge. And that inspires me. I would be devastated if I achieved my goal. We have to have a vision of greatness and push further and further and further. Esau was born complete. And thus, he continually searches and struggles to find that which he thinks he's lacking. When you're told by everyone, you have made it, you are perfect, well then, that's when the trouble starts. And thus we find that Esau, it's cyber thief, he's always hunting, he's looking for something, he's on the chase. He can never, his soul cannot find peace. And when Yaakov confronts him, later on in Parshat Vayishlach, Yaakov says something profound. He says to Esau, Yesh li kol, I have everything, I'm content. Whereas Esau says, Yesh li rav, I have a lot, but I can never fill that void. There's a ferocious appetite within Esau that can never be stilled. So when we look at the character of Esau, we find someone who thinks he has everything, but ends up with nothing. And this is beautifully described in the stories that we have in our parsha of Toldot. When Esau comes back from the field and Yaakov is making the pots of soup, and Esau says, give me some soup. And Yaakov says, sell me the birthright. Esau has no qualms of selling the birthright. It means absolutely nothing to him. But years later, when Isaac is handing out the blessings and he blesses Jacob over Esau, suddenly Esau cries because he realizes what he has missed out on. He thought he was asui, he thought he was complete, but he only with time does he realize how much he's actually lacking. One of the challenges that we as human beings have to acknowledge is we need to find humility. When we think that we know everything, we will never grow as a person. When we think we have everything, that is when we become frustrated. But when we are humble and we realize we are not perfect and not complete, and there's a way to go, then we will continue to journey upwards. And thus we look at the names of the two boys, Esau complete. Yaakov, he starts as a heel at the bottom. And he has a name change to Yisrael. Yashar El, straight to God. He understands his mission. He understands his direction. And because he understands who he is, he's able to say, I am tam, I am complete. Esau is asui, made. But Yaakov is tam, complete. Shabbat Shalom.